Okay, to start off geometry, we're going to work with this foldable that goes over points, lines, rays, line segments, opposite rays, and planes. So I need you to take the foldable and fold it like I've shown you in the pictures. As you can see, this picture to the right, this is my actual foldable. So what I did was I laid it to where the definitions were showing, and I folded in the right side and the left side to where they meet in the middle. Where these dashed lines are, you can cut to where it creates a flap, like shown over here. These are actually all 6 separate flaps that will then open, or if you just want to leave it whole, you can. All right, so I'm going to start on the left side. This should be the point flap. So when you open up the point, you have this area right here, and that's what we're going to fill in. So the definition of a point is that it is an exact location in space. And it also has no dimension. We might go ahead and write that down. So it's not one-dimensional, two-dimensional, or three-dimensional. So it's an exact location in space. And how we draw it is it's literally just shown with a dot, and it always has an uppercase letter labeling it. So we can name this as point A. We can write the word point and then an uppercase A, or we can just write A, and if it's one letter uppercase, it's considered a point. So now we're going to go back to this side on the top right. This is where it's line. It should have the line flap. So the definition of a line, it is an object that has no thickness. So I'm going to say with no, oops, sorry, I had a mistake there. With no thickness, and it extends forever in 2 directions. So that extends forever in 2 directions. And it does take up space 2-dimensionally, so it's a 2D shape. Now when we draw it, it's going to be a straight line. It won't have a curve to it. It can be at an angle though. It's going to have arrows on both ends. And you can name it several different ways. So I'm going to do points on the line B and C. I'm going to do cursive lowercase l up there. So we can name this line BC. We write BC with a line on top. It must have arrows. You can go backwards. You could do CB. The order doesn't really matter, but you have to have the line with arrows. Or you can write the word line and L. Notice L is not a point. L is done in cursive. It's usually italicized. And it actually names the line, but it is not a point on the line. Now we're going to go to the middle left, ray. We're going to look at a ray. So middle left side is where we're at, and its definition is it is part of a line, and it consists of one endpoint and it extends forever in one direction. So you should definitely be filling out your foldable with us. And it is also a 2-dimensional shape. So it's not 3-dimensional, it just is something that you could draw flat on a paper, and it exists in 2 dimensions. So it starts at D, and I know it feels weird because it's like, oh, it starts at D. That is actually called its end point, as weird as that is. Then it continues on through E and goes forever in this direction. When we name a ray, you have to use its end point first. It has to go in the order D and then E, so the end point and then the point it goes through. And then you always draw the arrow going to the right, and you want to make sure you have one arrow on it, not on the left side. It has to be on the right side. All right, next we're going to hit line segment. It's in the middle of the right. So line segment is a part of a line. So it's a part of a line, and it consists, so I'm going to put consisting of 2 endpoints and all the points in between those endpoints. So, and all the points in between. I'm going to abbreviate points. So now since it's a portion of a line, it's also two-dimensional, so I'm going to hit 2D to remind us. So a line segment, I'm going to call this F and then G. And so it's a piece of a line. It does not extend forever, so there's no arrows. And when we name it, we can call it FG, and we put a line segment on top with no arrows, because arrows mean line. So a line segment has no arrows. So we can call it FG or GF. All right, so now we're going to do opposite rays. Opposite rays are on the bottom left corner. So opposite rays are rays, you have two of them, that share a common endpoint but they continue forever in opposite directions. So continue forever in opposite directions. It's also two-dimensional. Really, opposite rays form a line is what they're actually doing. So when you see this, it's like we have one ray over here. That's IJ. And then I'm going to switch colors just so you can see it. So then we have another ray, same endpoint, so has I, goes opposite, so it creates a line. And that's going to be called IH. So that one's IH because I have to name the endpoint first, and the endpoint is I. And then going in the other direction, I had IJ. And there's not really a symbol to denote that they're opposite rays. We would just say IH and IJ are opposite rays. And so together they form a line, but they can also be talked about as opposite rays. So now on the bottom right, we have a plane that's three-dimension because it extends forever in all directions. So it is a flat surface that continues forever in all directions. And it is a 3D space. And when we draw it, we draw a parallelogram to make a plane. Now let's talk about naming it. You can have this uppercase letter down here. I'm going to do B, and it doesn't have a point on it, so it's not a point. It has to do with naming it. And then I'm going to draw 3 points that are not in a line. So they are not in line with each other. So K, L, and M. So you have 2 ways you can name this. You can name it plane B, which is using the letter that's naming the plane. It does not have a dot, so it's not a point. Or you can use 3 points, and you can call it plane K, L, M. Now, these 3 points must not be in a line. So I'm going to put 3 points have to be, and I'm going to use a new word here, non-collinear. So just for the record, non-collinear means not in the same line. And that's our foldable. This will be used on our notes. I know it took a while to fill out, but it will be very useful as we continue on through this chapter.